This is Part 2, Episode 61. The item that Huayuhao retrieved was quite huge and extremely heavy. Even with his cultivation and physical strength, it was still terribly strenuous for him to lift this item. It was a gigantic stationary soul cannon shell. When this soul cannon shell appeared, Xianziwen took a few steps back, as if he had seen a ghost. Compared to the excitement when he saw the human-shaped soul tool, he was fearful now. Yes, fearful. This cannon shell was entirely fiery red. It looked very dazzling, and carved on it were many complex patterns. However, these patterns didn't belong to its formation arrays. There were some that even Xianziwen couldn't recognize even though he was a Class 8 soul engineer. The front of the cannon shell was conical, while the back was circular, the standard structure. On its body was a dim white halo. Xianziwen was fearful when he saw this halo. Such a soul cannon shell that was more than a meter in length and a foot in diameter would require at least a Class 8 stationary soul cannon to fire it. Theoretically speaking, this was a Class 8 stationary soul cannon shell. Even in the Sun Moon Empire where extremely powerful soul tools existed, Class 7 and above stationary soul cannon shells were considered resources to be tapped on in the event of a war. They were very lethal and even more rare. Although a stationary soul cannon shell was very powerful, the amount of raw materials needed to construct it was also terrifying. It was also very complex to craft such a cannon shell, making the rate of failure extremely high. If one failed in crafting, it was different from when one failed at making other soul tools. That was because the likeliest consequence of failure was an explosion. Xianziwen was shocked as he asked, You made this? Even he couldn't be sure that he could create a Class 8 stationary soul cannon shell. He wouldn't try either. Although he was very invested in his research, he still treasured his life a lot. Huayuhao nodded his head and smiled. Teacher Xian, do you think this is just a shell? Xianziwen groaned, Are you questioning my professional knowledge? You can fake the appearance, but not the aura. A soul tool above Class 7 has a spirit and aura of its own. The aura of this soul cannon shell is very strange, yet powerful. I even suspect that it could be Class 9. But how is that possible? Huayuhao smiled and replied, Nothing is impossible. This is the essence of my hard work, though it wasn't completely created by me. If it were only me, I wouldn't even have completed the design or the entire blueprint of this soul cannon shell. I obtained some help from my sect. Don't worry, you can analyze it. I'm more pleased with it than my human-shaped soul tool. As he spoke, Huayuhao lifted the cannon shell from the ground and took a few steps back before letting him get closer. Xianziwen didn't stand on ceremony either. He took a few quick steps forward and observed it seriously. He also used his hands to touch it. He trembled when he touched the cannon shell at first. As he lifted his head to look at Huayuhao, he was appalled as he said, What a strong and inauspicious aura. It's volatile. If this thing detonated, it would take countless lives. Aren't you afraid of causing mass destruction by creating such a lethal weapon? Huayuhao laughed coldly and replied, Does that stop the illustrious Virtue Hall from producing such weapons? A truly powerful weapon can be used to ensure peace. That's because no one dares to attack or start a war against someone with such weapons. The lethality of a weapon isn't scary, it's the people who use it that are scary. Xianziwen didn't say anything else. He only looked at the cannon shell seriously. The cannon shell was entirely fiery red, and the white halo it exuded had weird undulations of spiritual energy. It was almost like it was alive. Very soon, Xianziwen was drawn to an image on the cannon shell. Huayuhao extended two of his fingers and said, It's 2 surprises. I gave this soul cannon shell a name, the Devil's Frown. I hope that it will never appear on a battlefield, I hope so too. Xianziwen concurred with him. Through his previous observation, he had realized that this cannon shell was different from any other cannon shell that he had ever seen before. It was a completely new existence to him. He couldn't discern its internal structure through its echoes. This was an entirely new type of stationary soul cannon shell. He had no way of judging its power, but he could tell that the spiritual and inauspicious aura that came from it wasn't false. It was at least a Class 8 stationary soul cannon shell. Is it Class 8 or 9? Xianziwen's breathing was evidently very quick. Huayuhao thought for a moment before replying, If you were to fire it at a building, then it'll at most be classified as Class 8. However, I can tell you that it's undoubtedly a Class 9 soul tool if you fire it at an army. To create it, I researched it for more than a year. After that, I kept on carrying out small-scale experiments and some other basic experiments. I only assembled it after I returned from my holiday. You were busy with this over the past few months. Xianzuan asked. Hu Yuhao nodded and replied, I don't even know if I can make a second. I can tell you honestly that there are some things in this cannon shell that you won't understand. Or rather, I don't think any soul engineer will understand, including a Class 9 soul engineers. Xianzuan revealed a bitter smile on his face. I've got to say that you moved me. These two surprises are indeed too huge for me to take in all at once. I need to consider first. Why was Xianzuan unable to tell? That was because Hu Yuhao had fused the necromancy that Electrolux had imparted to him into this devil's frown. He incorporated a magic that didn't exist in this world into the soul tool. Even if Jing Hongchen were here, he would also be unable to tell. In fact, it was only useful for scaring people right now. However, Hu Yuhao wasn't lying. If it were truly completed, its power could easily compare to a Class 9 stationary soul cannon shell in a war, and might even be stronger. However, there wasn't any way to test its effects. As with any weapon, the only way of knowing its power was to use it. Otherwise, no one would understand its true power. Hu Yuhao wasn't in the least bit worried even though Xianzuan had left. He knew that Xianzuan was already tempted. How would he not be attracted given his love of soul tools? His designs and creativity could expedite Xianzuan's research by at least 10 years. Along with Xianzuan's own creativity, soul tools might be walking towards a new era. After consuming a simple dinner, Hu Yuhao continued on to sleep. Even though it was only a half-completed item, he had still expended a lot of energy to make it. He was very fatigued now. He slept all the way till daybreak. He opened the window and breathed in the cool morning dew. He felt very refreshed after that. Relaxing at times was a good feeling. He looked at the marble-white sky and purple rose in his eyes again. His cultivation of the purple demon eyes had never stopped in all these years. I'm going home soon. It's been 2.5 years. Eldest senior brother, third senior brother, fourth senior sister, fifth senior sister, are you guys doing fine? And Wang Dong, please wait for me, and second senior brother. Shrek's 7 monsters will be reunited once again. How nice would it have been if you were still alive, teacher? I haven't let you down, and I have never slacked for a single second over these 2 years. I have finally contributed to the Academy's Soul Tool department. You will see, one day, our mastery of soul tools will surpass the Sun Moon Empire. Hu Yuhao didn't hurry for breakfast after he finished cultivating his purple demon eyes, but instead returned to his bed and meditated for another 2 hours. Continuous deep sleep calmed his spiritual sea too much, and his body needed a certain level of adjustment. His soul power had improved at an impressive speed over this period of time. However, even a normal soul master's cultivation speed would slow down after reaching rank 50, let alone his. He washed up after 2 hours and had his breakfast at the canteen. Hu Yuhao was just about to look for Fan Yu and his second senior brother, but he met someone he didn't want to see. Jing Ziyan and Ji Juechen seemed a little strange today. They wore grave and solemn expressions on their faces, as if they were about to face something important and substantial. They came up to Hu Yuhao and blocked his path. Hu Yuhao said exasperatedly, "You two are just too impatient. Why do you look so grave? You just want to fight, right? Name a place. I will definitely give you guys some excitement before I leave." Jing Ziyan was normally the one who spoke, but it was Ji Juechen who opened his mouth today. The Soul Practice Arena. Let's go. With that, he turned around with his giant sword and started to walk. Jing Ziyan glanced deeply at Hu Yuhao and said, "We will be serious today." The corner of Hu Yuhao's mouth twitched, and he replied, "When are you guys not serious? Are you trying to say you've been showing me mercy this whole time? Let's go then, let's finish the battle as quickly as possible. I still have to pack my things." Jing Ziyan nodded and followed behind Ji Juechen. Hu Yuhao was astonished, and said, "We're fighting for real?" He knew that Ji Juechen had suppressed his soul power when they had fought before this. Jing Ziyan didn't do so, but she rarely used soul tools at all when they battled. All she used were her soul skills. Ji Juechen nodded, and Jing Ziyan was already equipping her soul tools on the other side. It was clear that the two of them wanted to have a last practice battle with Hu Yuhao before he left, where they gave everything they had. Hu Yuhao's eyes also grew serious. "All right," Ji Juechen said, "do you need to adjust yourself?" Hu Yuhao shook his head and said, "Have you paid for me?" "What?" Ji Juechen was momentarily stunned. Hu Yuhao said, "The entry fee." The 100 gold soul coins, have you paid for me? Yes. The chill in the Ji Juechen's voice grew sharper. That's good. Hui Yuhao seemed to heave a sigh of relief. Ji Juechen nodded towards Jing Ziyan and said, you first. Hui Yuhao suddenly said, I don't think this is exciting enough. Let's have a bet, and our stakes shall be money. What do you think? Jing Ziyan snapped, are you that broke? Hui Yuhao nodded and replied simply, yes. How much do you want to bet? Ji Juechen said angrily. Are you sure you're going to win? Of course. Ji Juechen grunted coldly. I'll lay down everything I have. It was Hui Yuhao's turn to be taken aback. Are you sure? How much do you have? Ji Juechen muttered, more than you think. Hui Yuhao turned towards Jing Ziyan, and Jing Ziyan nodded at him. How can I sit this one out? I think it isn't fair for you guys, Hui Yuhao said a little disapprovingly. I don't have much if you guys beat me, but I am taking both of your money if I win. Jing Ziyan said, that's fine. We don't care, but I am unwilling to rip you guys off, Hui Yuhao said seriously. How about I take the two of you on together? It's fairer that way. Silence, back. Don't you know we have to distance ourselves? Hui Yuhao waved towards them as he moved back to his own corner. You're being serious? Ji Juechen muttered coldly. Hui Yuhao smiled and said, aren't you guys being serious, too? Do you guys think that you're the only ones who have been holding back? Ji Juechen took a deep breath and said, all right. Together, Ziyan. Jing Ziyan answered, yes. Hui Yuhao stopped moving backwards, and one soul tool after another quickly appeared on his body. The soul tools on his body looked covert and hidden, and their colors leaned toward gray, and it was hard to determine their shapes and sizes from a distance. They didn't seem very big. Jing Ziyan knew that Hui Yuhao typically used soul thrusters when in close combat battles, but she didn't know what other soul tools Hui Yuhao would use this time. Come. Hui Yuhao invited them. Jing Ziyan began to move. Her body exploded with purple fog, which enveloped both Ji Juechen and herself. The purple fog grew denser and eventually covered the entire area. Hui Yuhao was familiar with her soul skills, and this was her first one, illusory fog. Hui Yuhao wasn't hasty to leap into action. Instead, he stared at the purple fog with sparkling eyes. From his perspective, Jing Ziyan's threat level was nowhere close to Ji Juechen. Jing Ziyan's offensive abilities were strong, but they wouldn't be able to immediately determine the outcome of battle even if they hit him. It was different for Ji Juechen, and if his extraterrestrial meteoric sword erupted, a single strike could determine the victor of this battle. Something happened that astonished Hui Yuhao, and he realized that he had lost his perception and sensation of Ji Juechen. The typical sharpness of Ji Juechen's sword intent disappeared, and Ji Juechen himself vanished. It felt as if he had disappeared inside the purple fog. Hui Yuhao's spiritual power was formidable, but he couldn't detect Ji Juechen at all. From Ji Juechen's perspective, Hui Yuhao's spiritual detection had failed. If this battle had happened before the last school holiday, Hui Yuhao's fighting strength would have been affected by his astonishment. However, an idea now flashed in his mind. Hui Yuhao made his move. The 4 soul thrusters on his back sparkled at the same time, and his entire body curled up faintly above the ground before he launched himself forward like a cannonball, right towards the dense purple illusory fog. A layer of icy armor covered his entire body as he moved, the Ice Empress armor. The crystal ice protecting his body didn't affect his soul tools under the intricate control of his spiritual power. A sphere of purple light suddenly appeared before Hui Yuhao. This sphere was only about the size of a fist, and fog surged around and within it, as if the sphere itself was made of fog, fierce. Using your killer move from the get-go. Hui Yuhao was slightly taken aback. This was Jing Ziyan's 6th soul skill, Fog Bomb. She's detonating her own fog bomb, just to maintain the illusory fog. The corner of Hui Yuhao's mouth curled into a faint smile. Too bad my domain of perpetual ice can be maintained for much longer than before. The fog covered everything, but countless snowflakes could now be seen within it, while the temperature began to plummet once more. All of a sudden, all of the purple fog began to explode outwards. The fog became like goose feathers in the process of the explosion before it gradually dissipated, while the original spot where the fog had condensed became as clear as crystal. The green light on Hui Yuhao's body was gone, and Jing Ziyan had a look of shock and surprise on her face as she lunged towards him from 5 meters away. She didn't understand how Hui Yuhao had broken through the premeditated and combined manipulation of her illusory fog and fog bomb. She thought that she could lock onto Hui Yuhao in that moment, but Hu Yuhao wasn't looking at her at all, his eyes were fixed on the other side. Ji Juechen was just standing there quietly. His entire body seemed to be covered with a pale grey layer, and he no longer felt like a person to Hu Yuhao. Instead, the current Ji Juechen was like a statue, a stone statue, and his aura had vanished just like that. However, Hu Yuhao could feel an intense urgency and danger coming from this statue in his spiritual sea. Impressive, Ji Juechen. Have you evolved again? Hu Yuhao didn't advance, but retreated instead. A powerful beam of light erupted from his chest. It was another soul thruster, and it drove his body backwards explosively in an instant. Jing Xian's body flashed forward in an attempt to block him. However, how could Hu Yuhao give her this opportunity? He swiped with his right hand, and the dark golden terror claws slashed out. However, he was surprised then Jing Xian's body exploded with a sphere of brilliant purple light, and 2 crescent blades appeared in each of her hands. That purple radiance was a Class 6 protective soul barrier, and she took the hit from Hu Yuhao directly, even though Hu Yuhao had unleashed a complete version of his dark golden terror claw. All this just to stop me from retreating. The dark golden terror claw swiped down violently. Suddenly, Jing Xian's entire body transformed into fog and dissipated. Her Class 6 soul barrier had just been baiting him, while the dissipated fog began to condense once more, and enveloped Hu Yuhao inside. The sticky feeling made him feel like he had landed in an enormous web, and his speed plummeted. Even though Jing Xian's soul tools dropped to the ground because of the transformation, she had still managed to achieve her original goal. The soul tools on her body weren't meant to confuse Hu Yuhao, but she had to drop them because Hu Yuhao broke through her fog too quickly, faster than she had expected. Impressive fog transformation and condensed fog. The radiance in front of Hu Yuhao's chest receded, and he didn't continue using his soul thruster too stubbornly. His feet touched the ground, and an intense layer of golden light burst from his body. The thick and sticky condensed fog was shaken off, and was no longer able to touch his body. This fog was formed by Jing Xian's own body, and was the most powerful aspect of her martial soul. It could be said that she was halfway to a martial soul true body. However, Hu Yuhao's sovereign's descent and the level of his spiritual power meant she wasn't able to use it directly on him. Hu Yuhao made a peculiar and slow gesture. His left hand gradually pushed forward into the purple mist, while he raised his right hand. There was a flourishing golden luster on both of his palms, and his spirit eyes erupted with golden light. The dense fog began to tremble violently under the churning effect of his palms, as if it were about to break free from Jing Xian's control. At this moment, Ji Juechen made his move. Jing Xian had managed to achieve her goal of delaying Hu Yuhao after all. A streak of grey light swept out like a whip. There wasn't a single undulation of soul power when it first appeared, and not even a single trace of anything at all. It was just a pale grey light that didn't seem to have any substance at all. However, a thin black line followed wherever this light reached. This was clearly the appearance of space being slashed apart. Hu Yuhao had been monitoring Ji Juechen from the beginning. From the moment Ji Juechen made his move, Hu Yuhao drifted lightly into the sky and fluttered backwards like a snowflake. This time, he didn't use any soul tools. Thick golden hues congregated in his left palm, and a pale orange shadow flickered behind his back. His left hand crystallized like suet white jade under the cocoon of the golden luster. Hu Yuhao pushed out with his palm lightly and undramatically, blocking off the grey streak that had arrived before him. Jing Xian's eyes were frozen open, as she was afraid she would miss something. The golden streak and the grey light separated once they touched. Hu Yuhao's body drifted through the air as if he were a leaf and slowly fell to the ground. Ji Juechen's body appeared in his original location. His expression was calm like a statue, but the extraterrestrial meteoric sword in his hands had turned white. Boom! A series of crackling sounds could be heard as the snowy white extraterrestrial meteoric sword shattered just like that, and disintegrated into a million pieces that drifted away on the wind. Hu Yuhao landed on the ground 20 meters away and stared at his opponent. Ji Juechen said nothing. The extraterrestrial meteoric sword had been by his side for more than 20 years, and yet he didn't show any emotions as the sword disintegrated into a million pieces. The battle didn't stop there. He suddenly raised his right hand into the air and pointed towards Hu Yuhao in the distance. A streak of grey sword energy exploded into being, and rapidly grew in size as it barreled through the air, eventually transforming into a sword shadow 3 meters long as it surged towards Hu Yuhao. Hu Yuhao raised his right hand and slashed out with a similar light sword, while dark blue light flickered once, then disappeared. The sword lights looked vast, but were actually as thin as paper. However, the thin swords still collided directly with each other in the sky with absolute precision. A shrill ring could be heard as a thin black line appeared in the sky, extending and sealing shut in an instant. Ji Juechen said plainly, "It's called solitude. It's not complete, otherwise I wouldn't need Ziyan to hold you back." Hui Yuhao smiled and said, "The truth is it's still a contest between the two of us. Your fighting style is just too unique, and there's no way you can work together with other people. You didn't have to do that. Even if Ziyan hadn't held me back, I would still want to test your domain's power." Ji Juechen's eyes sparkled. "What's that sword of yours called? I can feel a solitary arrogance within the extreme cold and from that palm, as well." Hui Yuhao replied, "The sword is called Unparalleled Chill, and the palm is called Snowless Glacier. Both are soul skills that I've recently mastered." Ji Juechen said plainly, "I lost." Hui Yuhao shook his head and said, "No, you haven't lost. This battle isn't over. You integrated spiritual power and soul power, and that move you invented where you convert sword intent into physical form hasn't been completely unleashed yet. My unparalleled chill can't be used continuously, and it takes a heavy toll on my soul power. Therefore, the outcome of this battle is still undecided." Ji Juechen shook his head. "I'm very clear about whether I've lost or not. You didn't use your sovereign's descent. Furthermore, you already held back against Ziyan. Your domain has changed." Hui Yuhao chortled and said, "Your perception is sharp. If my future opponents were like you, I don't think there'd be a place for me in the world anymore." Ji Juechen asked, "Will you always be at Shrek Academy?" Hui Yuhao answered, "For now, yes. At least, I will be there until the Continental Advanced Soul Master Academy Soul Dueling Tournament, alright. All the best, yes." Jing Ziyan came up to Ji Juechen and gave Hui Yuhao another deep glance. "Don't think we'll just let you be when you go back to Shrek Academy." Hui Yuhao chuckled and said, "Do come if you have the ability to do so. That's my turf, and Shrek Academy's soul masters are much stronger than I am. When the time comes, you guys probably won't know who to challenge." Ji Juechen's eyes sparkled as he said, "I hope you're not lying to me." Hui Yuhao answered with a stunned look on his face. "Are you guys really thinking of going?" Jing Ziyan laughed and said, "We just might." With that, she grabbed Ji Juechen and left the arena. Over 2 years of exchange studies were about to end. Shrek Academy's students were obedient and orderly, and there were quite a few prodigies amongst their ranks. However, his impression of this youth before him was the strongest. Back during the exchange students contest, he had actually gone into deep meditation for half a year, but his cultivation hadn't improved a single bit. Hui Yuhao nodded and said, "Is that all right? We're leaving soon. I want to express my gratitude to the Hallmaster before I leave, and there are some things I wish to discuss with him." It was immensely difficult for normal students to see the Hallmaster of the illustrious Virtue Hall, to the point where it was almost impossible. What status did the Hallmaster have? He held a position in the Sun Moon Empire where he was above everyone else, and below only a single person. However, this student was different. His status was special, to the point where Lin Jiayi didn't dare to reject him without a good reason. "Alright. Please wait a while, I'll find out if the Hallmaster has time to see you, alright." Hui Yuhao sat to one side and tilted his head down until his chin was almost touching his chest, putting on a serious and obedient look. Lin Jiayi picked up an internal voice-projecting soul tool and used a special soul power undulation to send a message outwards. It didn't take long before Jing Hongchen's voice could be heard on the other end of the receiver. "Hui Yuhao wants to see me." "Okay, bring him in." Jing Hongchen quickly accepted Hui Yuhao's request. The truth be told, he was curious as to what exactly this youth from Shrek Academy wanted with him. Can it be that he wants to join the illustrious Virtue Hall? No, that's impossible. Jing Hongchen's mood dropped when he thought about this. Lin Jiayi escorted Hui Yuhao to Jing Hongchen's office. "Greetings, Hallmaster." Hui Yuhao came forward and greeted him politely. Jing Hongchen smiled and said, "Please, have a seat." Hui Yuhao didn't sit down, but he remained standing as he said, "I have something I wish to discuss with you in private." "Is that possible?" Jing Hongchen was stunned momentarily before he waved towards Lin Jiayi. The corner of Lin Jiayi's mouth twitched. The Hallmaster is just so nice towards this conniving fella. However, he didn't hesitate, and quickly retreated from the room before he latched the door behind him. "You can speak now." Jing Hongchen scrutinized the youth before him. Hui Yuhao had become a whole lot taller over the past 2 years, and he was quite the young man now. He was well built, his shoulders were broad and his back was wide. His arms were big, his waist was small, and Jing Hongchen even realized, to his surprise, that Hui Yuhao seemed to have a special quality that wasn't there before. Hu Yuhao's relatively normal facial features were calm and determined, and he had some of the charisma that was inherently held by mature men. His sparkling eyes were especially riveting, and gave people a strong impression. Hu Yuhao said, "I've been at the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Academy for more than 2 years. Over these 2 years, I have received a lot of help from you, Hall Master, and I have improved exponentially in my mastery of forging and using soul tools. Our exchange program is about to end, and I wish to give you a personal present to express my gratitude." "You want to give me a present?" Jing Hongchen's curiosity was piqued. Not a single student had ever done this before, and honestly, nobody dared to. Never in his wildest dreams did he expect that Hu Yuhao wanted to see him to gift a present. Jing Hongchen looked at Hu Yuhao, amused. He said, "Your present might not be that easy to accept, eh?" Hu Yuhao hurriedly shook his head and said, "Of course not. This is purely to express my gratitude. It's a soul tool that I crafted myself. I hope you like it." He touched his 24 moonlit bridges as he spoke and retrieved a black metal box before he placed it before Jing Hongchen. From Jing Hongchen's perspective, this was probably just a soul ray, and it wouldn't be that powerful either. When he used his soul power to inspect the item, he had noticed that the energy-gathering formation array had soul power stored inside. It was probably Hu Yuhao who had infused his own soul power inside, and he hadn't used it yet. A series of howling sounds could be heard, and gave Jing Hongchen a shock. Several pop sounds could be heard from the wall immediately afterwards. Jing Hongchen glanced subconsciously at the black box in his hands before he quickly came out from behind his desk. At this moment, the doorbell rang. "Come in." Jing Hongchen stopped in his tracks. Lin Jie came in from outside and said, "Do you have any instructions, Hall Master?" Jing Hongchen saw that it was Lin Jie, and he continued walking to the wall on the opposite side and quickly found the small metal arrows that had drilled completely into the wall. He picked up the black box and infused some soul power inside. He pressed the button once more, and another series of shooting sounds could be heard. A shadow flashed by before the same popping sounds could be heard from the wall. This Jing Hongchen's eyes filled with bewilderment. He suddenly understood something and immediately said to Lin Jie, "Go find Hu Yuhao and bring him back here." "Yes." Lin Jie didn't dare to probe as he turned and ran to call Hu Yuhao back. How did the soul tool activate its formation arrays? How did it shoot out the arrows? It's not a soul ray, it's more like the model of a stationary soul tool. What's more frightening is that this soul tool doesn't need soul power to activate it, and I can simply press a button to use it after infusing soul power. How is this automatic setup crafted? Jing Hongchen couldn't wait any longer, and started to take the black box apart to see. However, he had only made the first move before a series of clanging sounds could be heard from inside the box. A self-destruct mechanism. What a guy! Jing Hongchen didn't have to look to know that the soul tool's internal gears and setup were now dysfunctional. Hu Yuhao had just left, so calling him back wasn't that difficult. This was especially so when he was walking slowly anyway, as if he had no intention of walking too far away. It didn't take long before he was standing before Jing Hongchen once more. Jing Hongchen lowered his voice and said, "Tell me, what are your intentions?" Hu Yuhao didn't ask Lin Jie to leave, and he stared at Jing Hongchen with a confused look and asked, "What intentions?" Jing Hongchen felt his heart skip a beat. "You do know how to act, this." He shook the black box in his hands. Jing Hongchen was almost fooled by Hu Yuhao's emotional sentiments. This fella was just too good at acting. Enough. Stop pretending. Name a price. I want the overall structure of the automatic mechanism. With his level of perception, he could naturally see the unique and special effects of this black box's internal automatic mechanisms. Hu Yuhao seemed lost as he said, "What automatic mechanisms? I just casually made this thing, and I've already given it to you." He's still pretending? Jing Hongchen felt as if all his patience was gone. "I am referring to the inner workings of this black box. Draw it out, if that's all right. I'm willing to pay you for it." "Oh, so that's the case." Hu Yuhao looked like he just had a revelation. "But, Hall Master, I have put a lot of effort into this research. It's not going to be cheap if I'm to sell it." Jing Hongchen snapped, "Name your price. Do I look like a stingy person?" Hu Yuhao extended one hand and opened all 5 fingers. He thought for a while before he retracted 2 fingers and left his index, middle, and 4th finger extended. 3 will do. I will exchange this with you for 3 Class 9 soul tools. His tone was casual and natural, as if he were just casually requesting 3 sacks of rice from Jing Hongchen. Lin Jiai almost vomited blood. What? 3 Class 9 soul tools? What does he think Class 9 soul tools are? A Class 9 soul engineer would have to put in so much blood and sweat, and materials as well, to complete a Class 9 soul tool. Does he really want to exchange this rickety old box for 3 Class 9 soul tools? The flesh on Jing Hongchen's face froze, and the faint smile on his face immediately vanished into thin air. You're trying to rip me off? Hui Yuhao shook his head and said, No, I'm not. I just feel like my research is precious and worth this price. Furthermore, we can still negotiate the price, don't you think so? Hui Yuhao lifted his other hand sincerely and pressed down his extended fourth finger on the other hand. 2 will do. What do you think? Jing Hongchen was infuriated. No way. Your automatic mechanisms are quite valuable, but how can your research compare to a Class 9 soul tool? Hui Yuhao replied, A Class 9 soul cannon shell will do, I'm not picky. This video will end here. Thank you for watching.